Hello, hello. And welcome to today's session of self-care. Today, we'll be talking about the virtue of lightness. Now, before we start, I want to ask you guys a question. What does lightness mean to you? Now, when the word lightness comes into mind, we think of physical lightness. Today, however, we'll be talking about spiritual lightness. And in spirituality terms, lightness means to be free and away from tension or burden. In terms of physical weight, there's skeletal weight, muscle weight, and fat weight. We know which is more important than the other. The muscle weight, right? It is helpful as it helps me use the body to its highest potential. Whereas the weight of the fat is not that important. It only causes hindrance on me performing certain tasks. Especially today's generation is really into exercising and going to the gym to get rid of that unwanted weight and build the essential weight. If there's too much unwanted weight, it will only bring me heaviness, and I will not be able to perform certain tasks and not be able to support myself. So by exercising, I can remove these unwanted weight and feel lighter, which will in turn help me stay healthier and be able to use my body whatever way I want. Now, let's talk about something we are all familiar with: traveling. When traveling, our suitcase can only carry a certain amount of weight, right? If there's too many things, we won't be able to close the suitcase, and if it's too heavy, we won't be able to carry it. So, to pack, we will put certain stuff and we ask ourselves questions such as, what do I want to take and what do I want to leave behind? Now, these questions are necessary because there's only a limited amount of things I can carry with me. And I want to make sure that I carry the most essential items and not random junk. If I travel to a cold place, I make sure I carry some warm clothes with me and vice versa. When traveling on flights, there's a weight limit on the suitcases. Most of us have experienced this. When we visit our families in other countries, we really put in the time to make sure that there's are only the essentials in our suitcases. We constantly check the weight and remove any items that are of little importance. Now, there is a limit on the suitcases because if there's too much weight on a plane, it can't take off and it won't be able to fly. Such is our life. It is a journey. So on this journey, I want to make sure I take with me everything that is important, all that is necessary and useful. On the other side, I also have to make sure I don't take anything and everything. Because it's a long journey and I don't want to bring things with me that will weigh me down. This journey doesn't finish tonight or in a week, and I don't know how long this journey goes on. But if I take too much with me, I can't continue to keep moving forward. Now, for a few seconds, let's take a look at what is it that I'm carrying with me and what is it that I've not yet packed. But how do I check that on this journey, if I'm carrying something that is unwanted weight, that is useless, unnecessary, and weighing me down? Now, in a physical baggage, it's really easy to check, right? I just put it on a scale and check. But here, in the mind, how do I check? How do I check if I'm light or heavy? Think about it for a minute. What do you guys think? How do I check if I'm light or heavy? If there's any burden. If I'm sad. There's stress, of course. Yep, there's too many unnecessary thoughts. For sure. Now, if I'm light and not burdened, I'll be energetic, enthusiastic, inspired, and happy. I'm ready to try new things. Always inspired. This is how I know I'm traveling light and I'm traveling okay. Whereas if I'm heavy and burdened, I'll be unhappy, dull, and tired. I'll feel lazy, uninspired to try new things, and life will feel boring. I won't be interested in anything or doing anything. Truly, a way to check what is inside the mind is silence. Silence of the mind. To understand this, let me tell you a little story. There was once a farmer who discovered that he had lost his watch in the barn. It was no ordinary watch because it was a family heirloom and had great sentimental value for him. After searching high and low among the hay for a long while, he gave up and enlisted the help of a group of children that liked to play outside the barn. He promised them that the person who found it would be rewarded. Hearing this, the children hurried inside the barn, went through and around the entire stack of hay, but still could not find the watch. Just when the farmer was about to give up looking for his watch, a little boy went up to him and asked to be given another chance. The farmer looked at him and thought, why not? After all, this kid looks sincere. So the farmer sent the little boy back to the barn. After a while, the little boy came out with the watch in his hand. The farmer was both happy and surprised. So he asked the boy, How did you succeed where all of us failed? The boy replied, I did nothing but sit on the ground and listen. In the silence, when all the other noises had stopped, I heard the ticking of the watch and just looked for it in that direction. So, this story tells us that to truly check what is happening in the mind, we have to practice the silence of the mind. So, let's check. For a moment, step inside and see. As I perform tasks throughout the day, do I feel enthusiastic or do I feel bored? Am I looking forward to making change, doing new things, or trying something new? So check yourself, because this is not something that someone will tell you. It is something we have to check for ourselves. As we find that if we're not 100% happy or enthusiastic, there's something that is weighing us down. So now let's ask ourselves, when was the last time I felt heavy? When was the last time you guys feel you felt heavy? What happened? A lot of work for sure. Okay. When you read the news. Hmm. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Many times though, when we think about something that is weighing us down, we think of something big happened in our life, right? Some big calamity occurred, some horrible event happened in our life, but that's not true. Maybe some of us have seen big things in life, but even compared to the context of the world, it is very small. But then why is it that I'm carrying this burden when there isn't something big that happened in my life? To show this, I'll do a little exercise. I'll hold this tiny object up. Now, this object is very light. How hard do you think it is for me to hold this object? Not hard, right? It's very easy. It is small, light, but this little thing can be a very big pain for me. It won't be that much of a trouble to hold it for a few minutes, but holding it for an hour might be hard. But if I have to hold this for an entire day, this little object can cause me a lot of pain. My arm will start to become numb and it'll become very, very painful. There will come a point where all I can think about is dropping this object, right? And when can I get rid of it? Now, this is important because it's not like we have big problems in our lives. It's that we don't know how to get rid of the small ones. So we carry them with us, such as someone did something, someone said something, someone didn't do or say something. It doesn't take that much of an effort to drop it right there and move on. But many of times we don't know how to drop these things. So we keep it in the mind. Now, once I put it in the mind, it is something I will have to carry all my life until I get rid of it. Now, these little things over a long period of time can become a burden. I want you to look back and check if you're holding on to anything someone said to you or done to you when you were young. Now, many of us will have some things that we're definitely holding on to from childhood. Sometimes when we look back at these burdens, we don't even remember where it all started or what situation caused it. Sometimes we don't even remember what happened at all. We only remember the burden. Most of us remember studying gravitational forces in school, right? The more the mass an object has, the more gravitational force it has. Just as such, the more heavy I am up here in the mind, the more I'll be pulled by other negative emotions and feelings. The more light I am, the more stable I will be, and the mind will not be easily swayed by others. This reminds me of a story. Two traveling monks reached a town where there was a young woman waiting to step out of her seat chair. The rains had made deep puddles, and she couldn't step across without spoiling her silken robes. She stood there, looking very cross and impatient. She was scolding her attendants. They had nowhere to place the packages they had held for her, so they couldn't help her across the puddles. The younger monk noticed the woman, said nothing, and walked by. The older monk quickly picked her up, and put her on his back, transported her across the water, and put her down on the other side. She didn't even thank the older monk. She just shoved him out of the way and departed. After that scenario, as they continued on their way, the young monk was brooding and preoccupied. After several hours, unable to hold his silence, he spoke out. That woman back there was very selfish and rude, but you picked her up on your back and carried her. Then she didn't even thank you. I sat the woman down hours ago, the older monk replied. Why are you still carrying her? Now, in the story, we see that the younger monk was carrying something so little for such a long time, and all it did was it brought him burden and heaviness for that time. Just as such, we carry such small things throughout the day. Something that might have happened at school or something that might have happened at work. The things and situations are so small, but as we hold them longer and longer, it becomes more and more painful. In the story, the situation which took place for just a few moments, the younger monk carried for hours. It was the only thing in his mind during the entire time, causing him only pain and suffering. He could have dropped that situation right then and there, just like the older monk had. But he carried the unwanted weight. The older monk was light for those hours, whereas the younger monk was heavy. Now we need to ask ourselves, which individual is it that we want to be? Do we want to hold on to little things and constantly carry burden? Or do we want to stay light? This reminds me of a quote. Let go of your past and you will be able to enjoy the present to its fullness. This is something we all need to remember, because nowadays, most people tend to live in the past, in the burdens and mistakes of the past. By doing this, not only do they remain in heaviness and suffering, but they're not able to enjoy the present to its fullness. Now, we'll do a little exercise. I want all of you to visualize yourself carrying a backpack on your shoulders. Now, in this little exercise, we will fill up our backpacks with about 10 to 15 things that we have to carry with ourselves. I'll say a few statements, and with every statement, I say you have the choice of putting in the backpack one of two things: a stone that weighs 1 to 2 pounds, or a colorful light feather. For every statement, you have to put these items based on how you feel. If you feel light and good, then put a feather. If you feel bad, burdened, then put a rock in your backpack. So now let's start. I'll start saying these statements. You are very caring. You are intolerant. You are loving. You are useless. You are dishonest. You are beautiful. You are hateful. You are ugly. You are truthful. You are afraid. You are an angel. You're not fit for anything. You will never succeed. You are courageous. You are amazing. Now, did you pick up either a feather or a rock? Now, if we look at our backpack, we can see that it's pretty heavy, right? Which statements made you add a rock and which statements made you add a feather? Mm-hmm. Yep, positive statements and uplifting statements such as you're beautiful, you're an angel. These are feather light. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're courageous. Yep. They don't add any burden inside us, and they only make us feel good and happy. Then there are negative statements such as you're ugly, you're hateful, right? These only add burden inside of us and make us heavy. This is what happens throughout our day-to-day lives. We come across many people that give us these things, or even myself, what I say to myself throughout the day. right? Many of us have heard such things as you're useless, you're not fit for this, you can't succeed, and so on. We take them and we carry them with us. But we don't realize that these things are actually bringing us down. We need to realize that people will give me. People will give me what they have. But we need to ask ourselves, do we have a choice? Do we have a choice to take what others give us? Just think about this for a second. Do we have a choice to, right? We do, exactly. We have a choice of, because we meet all kinds of people and they give us all kind of things. Some will give us hatred and some will give us love. Even if someone gives me a rock, I have the choice on what to take and what not to take. Right? We have the choice on what to put in our bag because it is my bag. Right? People can't put anything in my bag, only I can. So we can leave those rocks right there and not have to carry them with ourselves. These rocks, such as you're useless, you're not fit for anything, are these ever going to help me? Not really, right? We need to look at what others are giving me. Are they telling me that there's something I can do better? Because if there is, I take that, but I leave the rest behind. I toss it aside, throw it away. But remember that once I throw it away, I'd never go back to it. Right? Because there's a lot of times when I forget something hurtful, I think of it as over. I tell myself that there's no point of thinking about it. It's over. It's in the past. But after a few minutes, I pick it up again. How could they do that? Why did they say that? Right? So once I throw it away, I have to make sure I don't go back to it. This is the one and only way I can stay light. What's really unusual is that a lot of times we give ourselves more rocks than other people. Rocks of self-doubt, fear, and uncertainty. I sometimes start filling my own backpack up with my own rocks, and I become my own worst enemy. So I have to really make sure that I give myself no rocks and only feathers. Feathers of encouragement, self-respect, and so on. In a buffet, we have all been to a buffet, right? There's a lot of food options, but we don't eat everything, right? We eat what we like to eat, what is good for us, and what we choose to eat. What would you say about a person who eats everything at a buffet? He's going to be sick the next day, right? It is the same thing here. We have to decide. We have to choose. What is it that I want to take and what is it that I don't want to take? Now, this brings me to a story. Once, there was a free bird. She floated in the sky, catching midges for lunch, swam in the summer rain trickles, and was like many other birds. But she had a habit. Every time some bad event occurred in her life, the bird picked up a stone from the ground. Every day, she sorted out her stones, angry remembering the unfair events, and cried remembering the sad ones. The bird always took the stones with her. Whether she was flying in the sky or walking on the ground, she never forgot about them. After a few years, the free bird had gotten a lot of stones, but she still kept on sorting them, remembering the past. It was becoming more and more difficult to fly. And one day, the bird was unable to do this. The bird that was some time free could not walk the earth anymore. She was unable to make a move on her own. She could not catch midges anymore. Only rare rain gave her the necessary moisture. But the bird bravely endured all the hardships, guarding her memories. After some time, the bird died of starvation and thirst, and only a pitiful bunch of worthless stones reminded of her for a long time. Now, in the story, we can see that the stones were absolutely useless. They provided zero benefit to the bird, but she carried them nonetheless. It didn't provide her any joy. All it did was that it made it harder for her to fly. It made it harder for her to continue her journey. She could not enjoy life as she used to before. At the beginning, when the bird picked up a stone, it was no trouble. But little by little, as the number of stones grew, so did their weight, and so did the bird's heaviness, and it became more and more painful. She could have let the stones go and be like the other birds, staying light and flying in the skies. But like this, we also hold on to many stones, which only bring us pain and nothing else. They only stop us from staying light and moving forward. So we need to decide. Either we hold on to these worthless stones and stay heavy, or do we release them and stay forever light? Now, we talked about lightness in terms of lightness and heaviness. But there's also another term that describes lightness in terms of light and darkness. Now, what happens when we turn on the light in a dark room? What do you guys think? What happens when we turn on a light in a dark room? The darkness goes away, yeah. It becomes clear. It becomes easier to see, right? So, if we can stay light in the mind, not only will we be able to stay happy and free from burdens, but we can keep our mind clear, which will help us make the right decisions in the darkness of any situations. When I stay light, I can provide this light, hope, and directions to others like a lighthouse. A quote I remember is, "Be like a lighthouse. Let your mind and heart be filled with light. Let your inner light spread in all directions, radiating out to the world. Maintain your inner light, and your stability will provide light, hope, and directions to others." Now, we know what a lighthouse does, right? Provides lights to ships and boats who are at the shore and who are coming to dock. The lighthouse protects them from dangerous rocks at the shore, but also guides them to the right path. Now, lighthouses are located at the shore. They're built strong and stern to withstand any waves that are crashing along them. Just as such, as we become light, we can remain stable under pressure and in any situation. We can guide others out of the storms and direct them to safety. We here at the Brahma Kumaris believe that along with being a lighthouse, we can also be a might house. While remaining strong, you can also give that strength to others to cross any situation they have of their own. Now, throughout this session, we discussed the benefits and importance of lightness, such as will be energetic, enthusiastic, inspired, and happy. I'll be unburdened and free from any heaviness. I'll be able to make the right decisions in any situations, and I'll be able to guide others and give others strength. Now, we talked about the differences between lightness and heaviness, but how do we stay light throughout the day? Now, there's several ways to stay light throughout the whole day. In the morning, first thing in the morning, give yourself some beautiful feathers. Now, this can be done through many ways, such as meditation or positive affirmations, or even counting your blessings, such as "I'm beautiful, I am wonderful, I will succeed." These can really cheer you up in the morning. So in the morning, give yourselves a bunch of beautiful feathers. Give yourselves feathers that make you feel light and happy. Start your day like this. These morning exercises are a great way to lighten yourself, and will be very helpful to you throughout the day. Now, throughout the day, for 1 minute at every hour, check if there's any burden or waste in your thoughts. If there is, resolve them right there and then. And ask yourself, is this really important? Is it worth me thinking about? Will this bring me any benefit? This is very beneficial because a lot of times we don't even realize that we have picked something unnecessary until later, until it becomes pain. So through this, we can resolve those small matters right there and then while they're still small. Another thing we can do throughout the day is focus on one task at a time. Finish that task and then move on to the next. There are a lot of times we switch between tasks quite often. and we leave them unfinished. Nowadays, working from home, we're neither doing our office work fully or doing our housework fully. When we have unfinished tasks, our mind keeps thinking about it. And because of the heaviness, my mind gets heavier and heavier. Like if we cook dinner and I'm occupied with something else, during that time, all my mind will be thinking about is cooking dinner. So we need to find a way to finish one task at a time and then move on to the other. Now, before going to sleep, for a few minutes, check if there's any rocks remaining in my bag. If there are, empty them before going to sleep. When we do this, we will notice that throughout the day, I do end up picking a lot of things that are unnecessary. So check if there's anything that I'm holding on to from throughout the day, and finish it and resolve it before going to bed. This will in turn give you a very, very beautiful sleep, because our dreams are affected by our last thoughts. Just like how kids sleep with their palms open, because they're not holding on to anything, and they sleep peacefully. As they grow up, they're told beautiful bedtime stories before they go to sleep, so they have a good sleep. They're not told horror stories, right? Because you can imagine how their sleep would be if that were so. So before going to bed, remember to empty the rocks from your bag. Now, for a few minutes, I want to have a little time of silence. I want you guys to just listen to what I'm saying and experience it. So let's start. As I sit here, my breath slows down. And with it, so do my thoughts. Little by little, I start to see a little clearer. I look back into the past and look at anything that I'm holding on to. Any past burdens, any past mistakes, any rocks that I'm still carrying. And I release them, as they only hold me back from moving forward. Little by little, as I release these burdens, I start to feel lighter. Now, I look into the future. All the worries and uncertainty I have of the future, I let it go, because it is something that is not in my control. I now come back to the present, to this moment, this 1 second, because this is the only moment that is in my control, the only moment. And in this moment, I can feel extremely happy and peaceful. From now on, I will learn to live in the present, as it is the most beautiful gift I have. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Brahma Kumaris, either through email or phone. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you.